Hello everybody, I'm Kathy. Welcome, thank you for joining me. Today we're going to talk about collapsing timelines. And it's something that's coming up pretty powerfully right now because there's been so much intense energy. You know, a lot of people, whether I've talked to them or what you see online, things like that, are talking about their, going through a lot of clearing in January. The energies have been super duper high, and when it's so heightened, a lot of times we come to these big timeline convergences and collapses. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that today, and I really like practical tools. So I wanted to share a practical tool for when this happens. And it's sort of like, just to describe what I'm talking about, you can call it timelines, you can call it dimensions, we'll call it separated barriers, old memories, old parts where your consciousness has been stuck in other places, perceptionally stuck, because it never truly is stuck, but, and it's like integrating old aspects but what I'm talking about is when you have a lot coming in at once, it's sort of like a very powerful kind of eruption. It all comes to a head and then collapses, which is wonderful, but it can be like super intense. And, so I want to talk about how to kind of go through that gracefully. And there's quite a bit of that going on right now. So, the first thing always, with everything we do as we are aligning more with our heart, our true essence, is connecting with ourselves, our true essence, our presence, our beingness, taking those moments to sit, breathe, be. And before I get into this other example, I want to mention that because I can think of a few times over the last, 5, 6, 7, 8 years where when I've had these big convergences coming up to collapse, it's like there's been times where my best choice, what I did, what worked the best for me, was to just sit, breathe, and feel my presence, going beyond thought into that timeless space of isness, and really expanding. And that's like I've shared why I make the shavasanas, for example, because it gets you into that place of coming in, opening, expanding, and going beyond the mind. And when we're disengaged from the outside world and even the internal voices and emotions, and so expansive, that's when all the energies can realign for you. Literally, your higher levels, call it your expanded consciousness, whatever you want to call it, your source consciousness, and all the higher dimensional facets of yourself, if you will. Not higher like better, but just the real you, instead of this perception of a contained human, right? And so your true essence, you could say, can come in and realign things, and really the energy can just realign for you. So first of all, if you are experiencing intensity, then that is a great option. When this happens, it's like all the, we'll say, emotional content, all the situations in your life, all the stories, it's sort of like right before they're, let's say you've been doing whatever, however you do your thing to allow for all the integration, you've been staying aligned in your heart and your breath and your presence and your awareness and neutrality. And then when we have a really powerful shift, it's like the last hurrah. It all kind of comes up and tries to grasp for dear life because it's losing all of its power. But it's sort of like, we'll say the whole egoic construct kind of throws it all at you at once. Like, are you sure you're done with this, right? And try to suck you back in. So when that happens, it can be super duper intense. I remember a few years ago, I was working a job where it was like optional. I was a brand ambassador and I canceled my shift because I woke up that morning and just felt so bombarded and just, ugh. And so I literally sat and breathed for like 3 hours, and then I canceled my shift because I started to feel it lift and dissolve, without any work, without really any analysis, any figuring out, just feeling my presence, my awareness, and just watching it all. So I want to throw that out there as always a great option to just go into that timeless space, that deep kind of, I'll call it like a void-like space, or, sometimes I feel almost like it's very far away from me and I can watch it all and just be in my presence. So that's number one. And being in your breath and your presence is always number one, whether you take a couple hours at a crack or you many times throughout your day, you stop, you breathe, you feel. But always when things get hard or tough, a deep breath and feeling your presence. When you're feeling, you're not thinking. Literally the best way I know to allow more of myself to come through, more of my clarity, my beingness, my joy, that solid feeling of knowingness, is to feel. So usually throughout my day, all the time, I'm feeling myself in the chair of the car. I'm feeling my feet on the ground. And when the mind goes up into a thought and it's like, okay, we're done with that, I come right back in. So just keep coming back into your body, your breath, your presence, and feeling. All right. And then, of course, expressing. So that's point number 2. When you get a little bit, we'll say, when this is going on, if you haven't been expressing, moving, if you started to shut down at all, withdraw, retract, especially if you started to get sucked into any of the thoughts and started feeling not so good, our energy tends to shrink in and it can be very confining. You can feel very closed off. So if you find that, then expressing. So whatever that is for you, get that energy moving, get yourself open back up. And it can be as simple as, singing, dancing, talking to friends, stretching, yoga, qigong, any kind of exercise, going for a walk, going out in nature. There's times when I'm feeling in my body like I just don't want to move too much. Just, when you're feeling that sense of like it's just doesn't feel good to do something physical, or if you have a physical limitation. There's times my joints kind of go as there's expansions and contractions where a walk might not feel good. Then breathing, even deep breathing, more like an exercise type breath, instead of the slow, gentle breath, do some deep breathing exercises and some toning, singing, stuff like that. So keep your energy moving. All right. So I will give this example because this is something that has come up for me several times. It's like, we'll call it, it's not a process per se, but it's something that I've done that has really assisted me to just kind of hop through these big collapses. And again, it's going to be different for us all. As, if there was like a process, somebody would just like write one book and be, probably a gazillionaire, but then they'd give it all away because they were so enlightened or something. But anyway, so there's just so much discovery throughout this whole earth journey, right? In understanding our own constructs that we've created, dismantling them, becoming more present as we expand, going beyond thought into feeling, sensing, knowing. And so, this is just one little share that it's worked for me. And sometimes just sharing these things will, trigger ideas for people or give them more options, things they hadn't really considered. So, so I'll just go into this as a story to give you the example. And so last Saturday, I had to work. I work every other weekend outside of the house, like with, your real people, but with people in the physical that I can touch. And so I had to work at noon, and I woke up at 6 a.m. The night before, I had a lot of really big, call it like light infusions, very high frequencies coming into the body. And normally I sleep like the dead, but I was very, there was just so much energy merging in. And usually when that happens, a lot of times it's going to really push stuff out, bring it to a head. And so I was up late, and then I woke up super early, and like before the sun came up, and I could sense all this swirl. That's right, I did sense a swirl the night before. And so there were just a whole bunch of topics, we'll say everything in my life that had been showing up, like every topic, maybe there was a dozen different topics, we'll say. And so when I woke up early, it was like, I got to work at noon. Damn, because it felt really intense, really like being bombarded, that type of thing. And so I was like, you know what? I'm just going to take care of this. So, we've talked about breathing and presence and yada, yada, yada. Well, there's times where, this is a great option. In this case, I was like, I'm going to deal with this, address this, bring it through the mind, come to terms with everything that is going on mentally, because I have a really busy day. So, we don't want to go into like real big analysis and, but I will highly recommend that when there are themes, you do take a look at them. And so you look at them, you analyze them, you feel into them, you ask to be shown, because it's really important that we are bringing our mind along so that we have mental clarity on what is happening right now, past, present, future, not to dig into things, but when it's coming right here, it's like, okay, I'm gonna take a look at this, especially when it's reoccurring. So anyway, I sat down, I actually grabbed a notebook, which I didn't end up using, but I said, that's it, we're gonna take care of this. And I always recommend, if you have a lot coming up, if you haven't taken a look at it and come into clarity, body, mind, essence, here's where I stand on this. Here's what is true about this for me now. Then do that, So it's not about doing a lot of work, and it's actually not a lot of work. So I sat down, said, okay, let's just see what's going on here, right? And so I kind of welcomed forth my beautiful egoic friend, the big construct, the filters, the stories, beliefs, fears, whatever that had been presenting that didn't feel good, that was being flung at me, that, sometimes you feel it pushing on you or pulling on you, or it's thoughts or whatever. And so I just said, all right, let's just make a list of everything that's going on here. And so I said, all right, number one, and I'll share a few examples just to give you an idea of kind of how I went through it myself personally. And like the first thing, that I thought of that came, so I'm like, all right, ego, fear, drama, whatever, give me a shout. Let me hear it. Show me what else are you afraid of? What else is going on? What else is wrong or bad or whatever, all this. And, I'm always in my clarity that it's not me, but getting super, super clear is wonderful, because like that day I had to go to work. There's some days where I might have work to do here, and then like today I have to run my daughter to an ortho appointment, and then I got to go stop for another appointment, and then after that I come home for a bit, and then I go pick my daughter up at school, and then she's got a sports practice tonight, and then there's maybe grocery shopping. So it's like, if you are integrating more and more and more into daily life, if you've had that time away, or if you're just, if you have a busy life and you have like certain thoughts, feelings, emotions that are showing up, it's really good to get super clear within yourself, because when you're in your busy day-to-day life and they come flinging, if you're not clear, you might be like, oh no, should I be afraid? Oh gosh, did I, whatever. Did I forget to do this, or, whatever? If you're not really clear in yourself, they have a tendency to maybe hook into you a little bit and have you start questioning yourself. But when you're solid with it, it's like then throughout your day, when you don't have really the time, we'll say, the ability, unless you, say, sorry, I can't talk to you right now. I have to go step back and, I have to come to terms with this thought I just had. So you could do it once, get really clear, and then it just makes your day go a lot smoother. So, so the first thing that came up was, it's winter in Wisconsin. It's been like, there's been snow on the ground for months and months and blizzards and things like that, which is totally normal. But what has been, I'll call it abnormal for me, is going out for drives when I gotta go pick my daughter up, especially like late at night if she's at a friend's house till midnight or something. It's like, oh my God, here, we got this little friend I welcomed forth. What if we go in the ditch? We better bring our hat. We better bring our scarf. Like, it's late. What if something happens? Do you have your phone? Fear, 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 fear. And so, that was the first one I brought up because it's just like, oh my goodness, this has been awfully loud. And of course, you have the collective right now in a tremendous amount of fear. What if, fear, 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 future, future, future. So it's like sometimes that energy, it's when you're feeling it or sensing it or hearing it, it's going to come through your own personal filters, whatever it is that apply to your life, your constructs, whatever. And also whatever you're expanding through. As we expand through dimensions, you have this big collapse and you expand through another. And in those expansions, we'll call it those like layers or whatever you want to call it for the sake of this. There's different, you can call it aspects from this lifetime where you've, made a decision and anchored it in with emotion and left some of your pure consciousness encased with that. And then, past lives as well. And so it changes, one moment you're like, I was totally fine with that last year. And now this is coming. Well, you're just kind of can't do it all at once. Okay. In the physical body, this is a step-by-step process. There are layers and levels because we are in a linear experience here. So this fear. So what I did and what you could do if you like is I just sat back on my couch, and so I took a look at this fear, all this fear about going outside, going for walks. What if we get hit by a car? What if we, and for me, it's not usual. It's sometimes some thoughts, but it's often, I feel the energy sort of trying to come in, and it's like, no thanks. No, not concerned. But if you're not solid in your knowing, maybe I should, double check that my insurance isn't expired or, whatever that thought may be. Maybe I should go back and grab a hat and some snow boots and a shovel, or something like that. If you let it come in, if you believe it, if you give it power, if you choose that belief and you bring it into your reality, into your body of consciousness, then that becomes your reality. And the last thing I want to bring into my reality is any fear. So this is fear-based, obviously. And, some people will say, well, you need fear to survive. You need fear to live. Well, I definitely would disagree with that completely because you have wisdom. Like, I don't need to be afraid of driving into the ditch to not drive into the ditch. I don't need to be afraid of getting hit by a car to stay off the side of the road because I have wisdom. So, and the other thing about fear is that if you're going to fear something, let's say what if we slide into the ditch? And I say, yeah, oh my God, what if I do slide into the ditch? Like, oh no, I better drive careful or whatever. Now that you're bringing in that fear, you're bringing that into your reality. And for the folks who worry, I'm not a worrier. I've stopped worrying a long time. I don't worry about anything ever. But if you do tend to do that, like you have a certain, maybe it's about COVID or the weather or the world or your health or whatever, if you take that worry in and then you chew on it, you give it attention, it grows. The fear of, we'll say, going into the ditch grows. It grows. And the energy of it grows. And the energy that we embody, that is what is sent out. And then we attract it. It's just literally going to be reflected in your reality. And so the folks who are like, don't go in the ditch, don't go into the ditch. That's the first person that's going to go into the ditch, or their friend is, because they're just sending that out very powerfully as creator. We do get to choose our thoughts, beliefs, and essentially our reality as far as that goes. And the irony is, the less you fear things, the less fearful things happen to you. So going back to the fear thing. So I addressed this. So first of all, like I just said, well, this doesn't serve me at all. Fear doesn't serve me. I don't need it. I don't need fear to stay on the road. Also, the thinking about it, the choosing that attracts the very thing to me that I personally don't really care to bring into my life. I don't really want to go in the ditch. And then, and if I do, so what? I got AAA, call them, tone me out, blah, blah, blah. So then it's sort of like challenging the fear, not like to a duel, but prove it. Why should I listen to you, right? Really, why? So I started playing the why game. So why? Well, so what? If I go into the ditch, why? Well, ultimately you can sort of drill this down to death, okay? Ultimately, if you get into an accident, what's the worst that could happen? You could die. And I'm like, well, I can't die. I know who I am. I'm an eternal essence. So pulling the death card, it's like, if I were to crash and my body were to be completely beyond repair, then I carry on and the body dies. And I know the body is not having an opinion one way or another. So then I realized, so you are afraid you're going to die. The ego, this construct is dying, it's grasping, and it's trying to get you to believe that you are it. You know what I mean? So it's kind of an interesting thing. It might sound extreme, but I take these things all the way to death. And then I realize, so you're trying to get me to feed you because you're dying, right? And the fear of death is really that of this construct. And the less you believe it, the more it is dying off. So came to terms with that one. Nope, no way, no how. And then, so it's like, yeah, you're invalid. At one point, I thought I was this body. I thought I was this mind. At one point, I worked really hard to survive, to keep myself alive. I used the fear. But then, as my awareness expanded, and I woke up and I started to realize, really remember that I am not this body, this mind, nor contained by it. And of course, at some point, the body's going to leave. But living in fear doesn't serve me. It's like we transcended that. So I'm thanking this, going, well, thank you. Thank you for keeping me safe when that was what I needed, And I don't require that anymore. I don't require fear anymore. So thank you, though. Thank you. And then I just took all the thoughts, every aspect of this, and I threw it in I made a little teepee fire in my living room, and I threw the sticks on there. So I was getting ready to light this all up, right? So I just took it all, the cause, core, record, the effect, the memories, every thought that I had ever thunk from first separation till now about this fear, about death, about staying safe, yada, yada. I just took it all and tossed it into the fire pit, little sticks. And then, so then I sat back and was like, all right, what's next? And like I said, I probably went through about a dozen different themes, if you will. And then like another one, I'll share one more. One thing that's been kind of funny, kind of really annoying, honestly, is when I'm driving. Another driving one. It's been a lot when I go out into the world. I feel these weird energies, I think they make pills for this, but we'll call it paranoia. No, but when I'm driving, it's like if somebody is like too close to my car, it's just like I feel my energy like constantly looking at them, like looking over my shoulder, like somebody's following me, somebody's like especially if they like take the same routes or something, and just feel this like impending doom, like they're gonna come and get me, whatever, gonna kill me or arrest me or yell at me or whatever. It's just this like doomy feeling, this fear, this like, I want to get away from this person. And so it's just been really odd. And so I said, okay, let's look at this one now and like, what's going on here? And, you know, there's just really endless ways to address and clear up these old dimensions, right? There's no set format. But so one thing that I did here was I'm like, God, this has just been a real bugger. And it just, the feeling of it sucks, you know, it's just like, God, go away already. So I was like, where did this come from? Like, what is this? Because it doesn't make any logical sense whatsoever. I'm an adult driving my car, so are you. You know what I mean? It's like, it's just so weird. And sometimes we have these irrational fears, right? That are linked to things that we don't remember from maybe childhood or past lives. So I just, I welcomed it forth, and then I just took a breath and I just said, just show me, like, what is this? Where did this start? What is the situation or belief or decision or emotion or whatever that anchors this into my reality? I took a breath and I saw myself as a child, like 3. And this, we'll say this decision and this fear and running from people. I would run and hide a lot as a kid. And so it's like, it was this energy, this feeling, this fear of like, when somebody's like coming behind you that you have to run, that if they catch you, they're going to control you, maybe yell at you, you know, maybe, you know, whatever. It's like, think of a child running away from their parents, or, you know, whatever, whether they're in trouble because they did something wrong, or maybe it's like you feel controlled and powerless, and so you want to run, like, smile pretty for the camera, or go say hi to Aunt so-and-so, you know, this forcefulness, this overpowerment. And so I took a breath and had some, we'll say, connection with this child, this 3-year-old, and was like, you know, explaining that probably served us then, because we were powerless over the big giant adults when we were, you know, this tall. And I thanked her, you know, for her effort in running and hiding and the survival, and, you know, and then explained that we don't have to do that now. That first of all, nobody has power over us, control over, nobody could ever have power or control over you. Now, could they control your physical body? Yeah. Has it happened? And maybe as a child or past lives? Most likely, almost always, for sure. But does that relate to me here now? Absolutely not. You know, so this goes really into, like, we'll call it a true knowing of your essence, of your eternal beingness, and of power and control, and that, you know, people can maybe control your actions, your body, whatever, but nobody can control you. So this is going very direct into who you truly are, and clearing that up with these aspects, and going, you know, like, I like to go all the way to the core of it. Is what's the worst that could happen? And it's like, well, I mean, at this point on my journey, I totally know that, you know, nothing like that's going to happen. I'm not carrying the karma, you know, I'm not carrying karma anymore, or anything like that, where there's like this, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. You know, that journey's done. And even if it wasn't, it doesn't matter, because the way through it is to surrender into your true beingness, right? Doesn't mean if somebody tried to, I don't know, shoot me in the face, I wouldn't move away. But it is an acceptance that it's not, it was a, how do I say, it was a misunderstanding of who we were, being identified with the body, feeling that we were controlled, you know, feeling that we were this form. And that's okay. That was part of the journey of separation. So I spent some time with her and reassured her she's totally safe, totally loved, totally embraced, that, you know, it's not just me, but the whole universe here. It's me as the whole universe here, as we'll say, no barriers between myself and the archangelic realms, the ascended host realm. So I welcomed in our family, yada, yada, yada. I think by the time it was done, sometimes I'll see these aspects turn into like butterflies or just dissolve into pure gold usually, or fly off to the sun, but throughout it, I'm like explaining and I, this is the cool thing. So it's like, you're having this conversation with this aspect, this, we'll call it particle of you stuck off in time and space, feeling trapped, alone, scared, separate, abandoned, rejected, unloved, whatever it might be, unsupported. And it's just funny because as you are the guide, you are now the master. You're the, call it ascended master. You're the walking master, the living master, the parent, the elder, the whatever, all these terms. You are reassuring this one, but you're also becoming super clear within yourself about how you are love. You are loved. You are supported. You could never not be supported. You're eternal. You're perfect. You're beautiful. Those other people that were trying to control you, they were asleep. They were unconscious. They were in this perception of separation and power and control and survival and yada, yada, yada. So it's okay. There's no judgment. There's total compassion for them. There's total compassion for you, and bringing it all to love. Bringing it all to love and the perfection that truly only ever has been, because this reality, it's not the real reality, right? So it's sort of this, you're kind of in this simulation, if you will, this experience that dissolves away when you transcend the body and you go back to your true form. This reality is like, that wasn't even real, okay? And the only thing that kept you locked into it was your belief and identification with it. And as you let all of that go and surrender, then everything opens up. So that was another example. And anyway, so I went through example after example after example of anything and everything. It's like when it got quiet, I'm like, come on, there's got to be more. So I just welcomed forth everything that had been coming up that I could access. And then when it was all said and done, I had a big stack of kindling, you could say, and I poured a little gasoline on it. It actually burned like a whitish blue flame, but I welcomed my mastery realms, my support. So it was the ascended masters mostly. I welcome them right here because, we've got endless support, energetic support for a reason, and said, all right, let's help me light this all up. And I lit it on fire, again, as I bound it to the sun to be repolarized for the good of all humanity, never to return again, except, of course, it returns as pure consciousness. And then, and then I saw them kind of lift it up and say, we got from here. And then I took a breath back, which is another important part. Releasing all this, I took a breath and welcomed back all of my light, cleared and purified. So all the power I had given away for every thought, every morsel of consciousness I ever gave to every thought, every emotion, every belief, every consideration, the cause, core, record, and the effect, and welcome back my clear, pure consciousness. So I welcome back my light, cleared, purified. Done deal. And it was funny because that whole thing took about an hour, and then I breathed and I sat for probably a couple hours before I took a shower, and then I came and sat for another hour before work. And it was like so much energy refilling in the body. And by the time I went to work, amazingly, and this is kind of why I wanted to share this, I felt like a whole different person. So it was a very effective, quick, I'm really into practical, effective things. I'm very practical that way. And so it's like a lot of the stuff that I share, on my website or blogs or videos can be very ethereal. Like, I remember listening to facilitators years ago being like, whoa, but what am I supposed to do? Breathe, feel your presence, stay in your isness, don't judge anything. If you want to be enlightened, stop thinking and never judge anything again. It's like, okay, but what do I do right now, right? So I kind of wanted to share that very real example. So the beauty is when these big convergences come up, it's like, it's so rich because you can feel very scattered, very pulled, very twisted, very turned around. It can be very intense in a challenging way, but it's like that intensity, sometimes that challenge is what pushes us to just go, okay, I gotta deal with this right now. This cannot carry on. Like, I'm going to work and I want to have a sweet day. So then when we say, that's it, I'm dealing with it, it might be something like that, getting really, really clear in your body and mind and consciousness. Because now everything that I addressed in that morning, and it had to do with all different things, with other people, with, relationship stuff, maybe work stuff, like just a little bit of everything, but everything I addressed, it's like, if those thoughts kind of came at all, they didn't even touch me. It's like I didn't even feel it. And so at times it really is, though, maybe for you, and because this is always for me, so I'll say always for you. As I said, after that, I breathed for 2 hours, went into that space. And, so many people say, I can't feel my presence, or how do I breathe? I get that a lot. I can't seem to breathe. I'm trying to breathe. You don't try to breathe, you just do it. And I know you can feel pulled and pushed, but, it's like the real challenging moments when you feel like you're really suffering, that's when it's almost like you feel forced to breathe. So you could say thank you for, because it's the ego that doesn't want to. It wants to keep playing games, keep you busy, keep you preoccupied, keep distracting you, blah, 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 whatever. Let's go do this a little bit. And so, so the challenge is, if you're feeling a big challenge, maybe you're ready to say, you know what? I need to deal with this right now. Take a look at it mentally, as the eternal beingness that you are, as your highest, most expansive, truest, purest form of knowingness, and allow nothing less than love. So no fear. So bringing it all into clarity beyond any sense of fear, survival, or identification with your physical body or mind or the world, going into your true essence. And that's the clarity. That's why I call this the clarity series, because that clarity will help you to go, oh no, this is not true about me. But of course you made these other decisions when you were a child, unless you had enlightened parents, we all grew up in this world, so it's totally natural. So when it comes up, it's an awesome thing, because it does sort of push us into getting really, and I will say serious. I'm not a serious person, but I am freaking serious about my clarity, and I refuse to give any power away to anything less than love, or to give power away to anything, technically, or anyone, or any scenarios, or whatever, whether it's money, whether it's people, whether it's even the health of the physical body, And so I hope that made sense. And if you have any questions or comments, as always, let me know. And I hope you enjoy a little lightening up of the energies. I think that's what's happening here, as we've got seems like just a snowball effect. And it's going to keep going. It's going to keep flying. But if you've been present, aware, breathing, and really just true in your internal integrity, it's, it's not so much work. The work stuff, like I just mentioned, it's like that totally served and it felt awesome to do. So it's not work, it's a joy. It was such a joyful transformation that just happened in a matter of a few short hours. And that day I felt the most incredible deepening of my presence. I will share this actually. So that day I know, I have moments at work where maybe I can just sit for an hour or half an hour, and just in total silence, which is perfect. And so every spare moment I just sat, because there was just so much connectedness and this internal, the more that we really connect with, whether it's our heart, solar plexus, or even down below the navel, breathing down there and staying connected, which is very powerful for embodying, bringing the rest of you back into your body. But there's these moments of feeling this, like, it's like you're connected through every breath, through every sensation, your essence. It's like you're feeling your essence through your whole body. And it's this beautiful space that you just never want to leave. So people will say they try to breathe, and it's like, man, if you breathe and you connect more and more, you will reach a point where you don't want to leave that space. But it does take a determination, because there's all this filters of the mind and the ego. It's really not the mind, it's the ego coming through the mind. But where the ego is going to want to distract you. It doesn't want you to discover your eternal beingness, because it views itself as a real entity. It doesn't want to die. So it's going to pull every trick in the book and try to push, pull, get you into doubt. You know what I mean? So if you're one of those people that has had a harder time breathing and connecting, I do it every day. Every day, it might be an hour here and there. It might be 1 minute. I do it when I'm driving, but the really deep connections are priceless. So that's definitely something that is the best thing I know, that feeling and connecting with your breath and your presence, your essence. Alrighty, thank you so much for joining me today. I wish you the best with all your collapsing of the old dimensions, and then even more fun is we start to feel ourselves amplify, body speeding up even more to integrate more light and expanding and to new levels of freedom. Truly, it was the next day after this story that I shared that I was laughing on my way to work, and I might have been screaming out my window or yelling with my window down and my music on, I'm free, because in these moments you kind of laugh and go, wow, like that was in the old days, we'll say, years ago, that might have knocked me out for a week to come to terms with it all. And it was just like, within an hour, I was like, boom, 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 we're done, and carry on. So the energies are really jamming, and we're all speeding up. We're all, and by us, I mean our physical bodies and our realities. And so we're speeding up our bodies so that we can expand more of us through them, through our bodies, through our minds, through our worlds, and feel more connected, like that internal connectedness, feeling more of that connectedness even through your body with your physical surroundings. And so that those beautiful caresses and that beautiful, almost like water-like quality, which feels like you're under the ocean, like your body's in the ocean, it becomes expanded out indefinitely to where you feel like you are this universal ocean, that your body is just this big, and it's a part of, but you are this totality, and you have this little body instead of this internal connection of this. It expands well beyond. So keep breathing. If you got shit going on, address it, be done with it, deal with it, and let's carry on, because we're just getting started. All right, thank you for joining me. Namaste.